Hi, and welcome to the Green with Tiffany podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Page, and in this show, we'll explore topics of sustainable living, all aspects of health and wellness, of people and planet, and how we're all interconnected. Join us on this journey to live better and more sustainably by improving our health, our families, and the world with the choices that we make. Hi, and welcome to the Green with Tiffany Choose to Care podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Page. And, this is the first time I'm using Choose to Care in the title of my podcast. I have that as my hashtag, and it really is the reason why I do what I do, because the people I like to speak to have really chosen to care deeply about what they do and why they do it. And couldn't be a better person to start this off with than with today's guest, Laura Grier. Hi, Laura.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us. So she has coined the Indiana Jones of travel photography. I love this nickname. She is a travel and wedding photographer, a multi-entrepreneur, and the co-founder of the sustainable hat brand, Indiana Hats. As you can see, if you're watching this, we're both wearing them. So we'll talk more about that, of course. And then living abroad. This is so interesting when I found this out. Growing up with two CIA parents. Yes, we're going to definitely do a little bit. That's something I didn't know about you. And so, of course, that would make sense then that you have this life of travel and adventure and exploration, and that you've made it a profession, but not in the CIA, but as a photojournalist for 22 years. And Laura has photographed on all 7 continents. And while she was working at the National Geographic in Peru is where Laura fell in love with the culture and the people and the artisans. And that is where Indiana Hats was born with her partner, co-founder, Pat Skrisiak. And she was recently awarded a Social Impact Award for 2022 by The Know, a global media company and community that's dedicated to amplifying the voices of women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs. So I welcome you, Laura Grier. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for that intro.
You're welcome. So Laura, I had met before. She's here in Southern California with me. And recently there was a pop-up of in one of the boutiques that she has her hats. And, I saw her speak. She told the story behind it and was so passionate about it and was so knowledgeable and spoke so well about the community and the culture and just the artisans that are there. I was just so inspired. I wanted to know more. So, of course, I got a hat, and now we're gonna dive a little bit deeper with how Indiana Hats started and why you're so passionate about it. So take it away. So you were in Peru and you'd been there multiple times, or how did a hat business come about from this?
I know, it's so weird. If you'd talked to me a few years ago, I've been like, we're going to own a hat business. I would have been like, that's crazy. I've been traveling down to Peru for about 15, 16 years, shooting for National Geographic's artisan catalog, Navica. And so they represent artisans around the world doing vanishing crafts, and they help basically give them global marketplaces to sell their goods and to help get their communities out of poverty. And I mean, they're helping a lot of women, but families, men all over the world. And so Peru happens to be one of their hubs. And so I was just already going down there for years and falling in love with the culture. I feel like I must have been Peruvian in a past life or something. I don't know. It's one of those places where I can just keep going back to and never get bored. And I'm always discovering new things. But I was obsessed with the hat culture because in Peru, every village you go to has a different style hat. And you can tell by the type of hat someone wears where they're from, if they're married or single, or if they've got children, or if they're widowed, they're important, and where they're from. So I just thought that was so fascinating that your hat was like not only a cultural symbol, but a status symbol. And as a photographer, I started doing an actual photo portrait series of different women from all the different villages. So that was how my hat obsession sort of started. I already had a hat obsession. I was already wearing a hat every time I traveled and took photos, which is why I was called the Indiana Jones of photography, because of my hat, because I'm doing adventure photo shoots around the world. And so I had already had a hat obsession, but then it went way deeper with this photo story I did. And then as I was traveling around, I was like, these hats need to be shared with the world. They're so amazing. And my girlfriend who lives in Peru, who's now my business partner, Pat, we were on a hike one day and she was like, I could help you get these hats to the US. Like I live here in Peru. We could set up an export company. Like I could work with the artisans here and you could be front facing in LA. And so that was kind of how the idea was born while we were on a hike in Peru. And I just was so obsessed in photographing every hat that I saw. And I still, by the way, I've been down to Peru 15, 16 times, and I'm still will stop and be obsessed with like shooting any of the hats that I see. They're so fabulous. Like some women wear giant top hats. They're out in the field, like tending to their cows, like wearing a top hat. And they're just really unique and fabulous.
It's so amazing that the hats themselves are their own language, right?
Mm-hmm.
What they describe to people. And this hat that I'm wearing is kind of very Indiana Jones, right? What's this one called?
I like that one. That's the camel one. And you're wearing the happiness intention band. So we started this idea of having different removable bands on the hats. And they all mean something different. So they're woven by Quechua artisans in Peru who are the descendants of the Inca people. And their language is actually woven and it's not a written language. So all of these designs have been passed down for centuries in the Inca culture, and they all have different meanings. Some of them are historical meanings. Some of them are just ideas brought from nature. Like the one I'm wearing, which is one of my favorites, is the river, which is Mayu in Quechua. And our band means purpose. And the reason why a river means purpose to the Quechua is that a river always flows in one direction. It might change course along the way, but it always ends up where it's meant to be. And so a lot of times they'll use like a natural metaphor like that to explain an idea, because there's not necessarily a word in their language for purpose, So we actually have to work with the Quechua scholar to figure out the meanings behind some of their designs, because with we have people that can like do the language translations, but there isn't necessarily even words. And even though I speak Spanish pretty well, they speak Quechua. So it's like, we still need a translator, and we need someone who can explain their designs to us.
Is it similar, the language, to Spanish?
Not at all.
Not at all.
It's like, yeah. I mean, but a lot of the women do speak Spanish, which helps. They've just had to learn it because everyone in Peru speaks Spanish. But yeah, no, they're not remotely, that was the language that was there way before the Spaniards came. So, and they have a lot of different dialects and stuff like that too.
Now, here we are with January. It is a month of intention to set it up for the year. And so how great that we have these intention bands. So what is my intention band? I think
yours is happiness. And all those little dots that you see on there represent people, community, and family members. So to them, when we ask the women, like, what is your idea of happiness? And that's what they said, was being surrounded by community. I mean, in their culture, if a woman has a baby, like the whole village helps to raise it. Everything is done together. The women are very communal, and the men are usually out, working in the fields or doing other things. So the women are the ones that are kind of like holding down the fort and running the families. They're the matriarchs. They're very powerful in a lot of ways in their culture.
I feel that you bring that as well, because Laura, I'm sure you help empower the women there as what they're doing with the hats and the intention bands. But here in the US, you do that as well. You bring all these women together. There was a quote that I had posted once, and it said, "Empowered women empower women." And I love it. And I really do I feel that you do that because you're just so pro women in trying to help in all aspects to bring people together in community, to kind of trade ideas or help support in any way you can. And so anyway, I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. No, it's funny. I've chosen in my life to, I'm 43 years old, to not have children. And I have 8 nieces and nephews, and I love being an auntie, but I feel like, my maternal, I guess, instinct in my life is really like what you said, is like doing these groups and women's entrepreneurial meetups. I have so many things that we host in my house at any given day. Like we had a sound bath yesterday for a girlfriend who's about to go into surgery today. And we had like a whole group come together and do a meditation, and we'll do, just parties here and pop-ups here and like the women's groups and all the things. And for me, it's, instead of raising a child or two, I'm going to maybe hopefully influence a lot more children and women and other places. And that will be my legacy, I guess. It's just a different kind of way. And it's funny because I remember when I was like getting in my late 30s and I was like, didn't know if I was gonna have kids or not. Someone had said to me, like, your legacy doesn't have to be you birthing a child. It could be you could help many other children in different ways. And I remember that kind of stuck with me. And so I'm a feminist, but not like in an angry anti-man sort of way. I'm just sort of like I think that women, there's a lot of women, which I don't surround myself with women that are super catty or anything, but believe it or not, like there's so many women that I hear from my friends that are in the corporate world that just tear each other down and really don't help each other. And it just is shocking to me because I feel like we have our own little community and tribe here where we're all using our gifts and helping each other out. And that's how it should be.
Absolutely. Or they're very threatened. And so they don't want to
Yeah.
open up and give any. But yeah, I hear you with that. But I think what you put out, you do attract as well. And I think that you are surrounded by incredible women basically all over the world because you've got Peru with these hats. And then you also have in Guatemala as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, and our goal is to work with many, many more groups with the quiche artisans in Guatemala make all of our straw hats, which are behind me kind of on the floor. You can't really see them that well, but they're all hand woven palm hats. And then we are now just starting to work with huichol artisans in Mexico, these women that do these incredible beaded necklaces, but they're also hat necklaces. And so we're excited to be working with them too. So our idea is just keep on expanding our different communities that we work with.
Amazing, especially with this type of crafts that if you're on the Andiana website, if you go to it, it's Andiana Hats, you can see, I mean, it's just so colorful anyway, all the beautiful photos of all over, pictures all over. But one of the main photos is these women with these sort of unusual hats. I don't know if those would go over so well here. But they're very
Venice, because I feel like the bigger, it's just getting bigger. Like I'm going to start wearing a sombrero one day. They just keep getting bigger.
They're very colorful and pretty and very much a part of their culture. But you can also see how they make these bands and the way they weave them. And it's so interesting. And it's made from alpaca and llama. And they're just amazing and so intricate. And, you call them these vanishing arts. And it would be such a shame if these didn't get carried on. Do you find that they are carried on there? Or do you find it really is sort of taking a step back?
It's funny because the Quechua culture is considered a vanishing culture, but then there's a lot of ways that it is surviving. Like right now, there's a Quechua teenager rapper that's up for a Grammy, and she raps in Quechua. And Quechua just got recognized by Google Translate as a language.
Yes.
And, so there's all these ways that it's being preserved, which is really cool. And yes, it is a dying art where like a lot of these communities, if you go, I mean, I've gone way deep to some of these villages where you can't even like get there by road at times. And then I'll spend the day there. And all of a sudden when the teenage girls runs out and underneath all of her woven skirts, she like whips out her cell phone and asks me if I have an Instagram page. I was like, what? And so I think the teenage girls are able to hike into like the cities and they're getting exposed to media and they don't necessarily want to like sit in the village and weave all day, or there's not necessarily a like a future for them in it because they weren't finding a way to make money at it. But we are finding now that companies like myself and other companies that are working with these women's groups that if we're giving them income opportunities, then their daughters are like, I want to be a badass weaver like my mom, and they're proud of their heritage. And so that's what we're kind of like hoping to do. It's really about just giving them opportunities, and we're not like teaching them skills other than business skills and being able to connect like digitally and things like that. But I mean, the weaving skills and everything they all know. But one of the projects that we want to do with our nonprofit that we're launching this year, My Mission, is that we want to bring weaving back as a curriculum into their school systems there. So then they can actually get like a certification of weaving, and then like be able to get jobs with real brands and like actually work out in the marketplace and make it where it's not just something that they sit at home and do. It could be like a real career for them.
And really expand that. And then more people will want to do it because they can see that they can make a good living from that. So that's all And you have a fair trade practice there with what the women that you work with?
Yeah, so all of our weaving groups in Peru are fair trade, and we pay them per centimeter of their work. And we work, like a lot of the proceeds and everything. I'm not gonna say proceeds. Their partners it isn't a charity. We're a for-profit business. We work in partnership with the artisans. They get paid first. They set their wages. They set their hours, everything. Like we work on their schedule. We don't disrupt their life. Like everything about the groups that we work with is based around preserving their way of life and their culture. So we're really aware of, they're not employees that we like have on the clock from like 9 to, it's not like that. And so we have to understand there's times where things take a lot longer. It is extremely slow fashion, I like to call it, which I think is super trending right now. And it should just be the way it is. It shouldn't be disposable clothing being produced in China that's going to end up in a landfill,
No, it's such a special piece. And the hats themselves, you get these there as well, or where do these come from?
So the hats are all made in Peru. We did just travel to Bolivia to meet with a whole other group of artisans that also can produce the hats. So we can have more than one production area because it's just too much demand for one set of artisans to do. Our weavers are all over the Sacred Valley in many different communities. So no two bands will ever be the same because they're woven by hundreds of different women. And then our palm hats are made in Guatemala. So we're expanding along the Andes Mountains. I mean, which is why we named it Andiana hats. It's like the Indiana Jones of the Andes Mountains. So that was where the name came from. And
That's a great name.
Yeah, well, thank you. We thought about it while we were hiking, and I just was like, God, that'd be such a pretty hat company name. But it's funny, I get to use all of my skill sets, like my photography. You mentioned all the photos. I do all the imagery for our social media and our website. And, I get to go on the sourcing trips and do all the passions that I love, which is travel and exploration and working with women and photographing and fashion. And so it's kind of like all these passions sort of woven together, no pun intended, but that's why I love it, is that I still get to do everything I love to do.
Isn't that when it becomes so successful, is when you get to use your gifts and put it all together to create something else? Yeah. I love that. And then your logo is actually cool too. It looks like the mountains, the way it's shaped. And so it's really cool.
I actually found, speaking of intention setting, I write all over. I don't have like one journal I write in, but I've been doing all kinds of like journaling, intention setting. And I found all these different journals squirreled away in my apartment when I was cleaning over the holidays. And I found the journal entry of when I first came up with the idea for the hat company. And at the top of the page, I just finished hiking in Peru. I drew the scribble of the mountains with Andiana. I drew the idea for the logo. It like came to me, and I was like, I will start this hat company that's going to help many women and blah, blah. And I wrote this whole like intentional post, which I completely never remembered doing. And it's really cool now that I look back a couple years later and be like, oh my God, that's our logo. And like, we actually did it. And, this was a journal entry, and now it's like a real thing, So.
How amazing, and a perfect example. And so how it mimics, the intention that you put out there to create it. And then it created these intention bands as well. So that's kind of special. So the Quechua people, it is a culture of people as well as a language. It has to be a big enough language that Google now recognizes it, right?
Yeah, it is a culture. They are the descendants of the Inca people, but it is also the name of their language as well. But yeah, I mean, they're centuries old. They've been living off the land in the mountains for many years. And it's funny because I think, people always ask you like, why should we care about people far away and what like the Quechua culture, preserving it, or like, why does it matter? And it's funny that there's a lot of, I think ancient knowledge in general is really, really important to preserve because they're the most connected to the planet. Their knowledge of how to grow food, how to preserve the land, how to weave things, how like there no waste where they don't use plastic. they're weave their own bags if they need to carry something, like their ways of life are what we will have to do in order to save our planet, like honestly. And even like a lot of, like you've heard about all like the seed banks and all these scientists are going out, and now that like the temperatures of the earth are rising, a lot of plants can't survive, and they're trying to find ways to make our plants survive in hotter conditions. And they're going down to Peru to like learn from the Quechua people about how they preserve all these different types of species of potato and like different plants that can survive all these different climates. And it's because they've just been farming using ancient techniques and terracing their fields and not like stripping the land and not doing all of the, genetically modified stuff. So scientists are going back to the Quechua people and borrowing seeds and knowledge from them to like save our current situation on the planet. So it's interesting that, even though they're not considered the most technologically advanced culture, that their knowledge is probably what's going to end up helping us. And I feel that way about sustainability too. Like we're going to learn a lot from them. So, and not just, it's a beautiful culture, it's a spiritual culture, but I think their knowledge is really, they were just very tapped into Mother Earth.
It's just about going back to basics. What we had, they just never expanded and went into the full modern society. They kept it to where it is. But we have to kind of go back, roll it back a little with baby steps. So, all right, I have to get into a little bit of these CIA parents of yours. How did it? I'm watching Jack Ryan. I'm watching The Old Man. It's all this like CIA stuff. And so, I mean, how can you even talk about it? Are you?
I can talk about it because both my parents are retired and and I worked there, but I'm not working there now. So, I put it in my bio. My mom got really pissed off at me for doing that, but I was like, Mom, what's the point of working there if you can't like say that you work there? I don't know. I mean, I'm like living in a culture where I post everything I do. My mom is so anti every type of social media, internet, whatever. But
she probably lived so long, like, incognito without having anybody know anything.
Oh yeah. They're super paranoid, not in like a crazy way, but they're like, they still speak on the phone with me in a way that's like guarded. Like they don't say certain proper nouns. Like they won't tell me exactly where they are.
That is fascinating.
It's always been like that. I mean, I didn't know what they did for a living until I was about 16. Yeah, till a year before I went to college. And
wow,
all of my sisters knew, and I didn't know. I was the last one to find out, and they all worked there. So there was one point in my life that all three of my sisters, my dad, my mom, and my stepdad, all were working at the CIA, and I was the only one who didn't know in my family.
So you were a real family.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like some kind of like setup thing. Okay.
No, but I did find out, by the way, every time I go home, I find out more and more information of like things that my parents were doing in the 90s when I didn't know where they were or what they were doing. And I did meet this guy recently who was a friend of my mom's that used to travel as my mom's alias husband with her on some of her more dangerous journeys in Central America in the 90s. She was working in like drug cartel stuff. And so I was like, wait a minute, Mom. So you had a fake husband, CIA husband. You had a real husband and then a CIA that worked at the CIA. And then you have an ex-husband that worked at the CIA at the same time. I'm like, what the heck is that? She's like, yeah, I guess I did.
That's wild.
Meanwhile, I was like, why is Mom not at my basketball game? She's like dealing with stuff in Colombia. I honestly just didn't know. And there's like, where's Mom? She's on a trip. They just never told us.
What did you think she did? What did you think your parents did?
I mean, my parents said that they worked for the State Department, which I don't think anybody knows exactly what people at the State Department do, but that was their cover. So I knew that they had a government job, but I never, I guess when you're a teenager, you don't really like ask a lot of questions. You're like, cool, I'm just going to go off and play soccer with my friends and Mom's not here. Great. Like, I don't know. For me, I just had a very autonomous upbringing where my sisters and I were home a lot without parents and had to just kind of figure it out and get to school and get to our jobs and our soccer games. And we would just stay at friends' houses and they would drive us. And I don't know, we just lived a very independent lifestyle at a young age, which is probably why I'm the way I am right now. But I honestly just didn't think much of it. And, and so I mean, the way I found out, it's actually crazy. I did a bad thing and I had a fake ID made. As all my sisters were like going to Georgetown University and they were all going dancing at night. So I would go meet my sisters in DC when they were in college and go out dancing with them. Anyway, my mom found my fake ID and confiscated it. So I was like, okay, well, there's no way she destroyed it. It's got to be in her closet somewhere. So I went rummaging through her closet one day, and that's when I found like 6 of my mom's alias IDs and credit cards. And I was like, what
Wait
is
a minute, you have a ton of fake IDs. What are you talking about?
and I was like, wait a minute, mom, like what is going on here? And so she's like, you're gonna have to find out anyway, because you're gonna have to work there. And I was like, what? So that was how I found out that basically they all worked there and that I was gonna have to work there all through college. Yeah.
It's just wild. That's just a wild story. I don't think I've ever and did you travel with them or were you in one
No,
place?
no. I mean, the only time I knew what they were working on was when I had clearance, like secret clearance, and I worked there and I could pop into their offices at the time, but we were never, I don't think my parents ever actually traveled with each other except for when they were living overseas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then your love of traveling and especially cultures like in Peru, where did that come from then? You just fell in
Oh,
love
for
as
sure. I mean, the first 4 years of my life, my dad was stationed in Jakarta, Indonesia. So I grew up in Indonesia, and one of my sisters was born in Brazil, and the other two, like they just lived all over the world. So we were traveling a lot at a young age. And yeah, I absolutely think there's part DNA, part just learned behavior. We were exposed to many different cultures and foods at a young age. And I don't know, I think that made us as like open-minded and adventurous as we are. Two of my sisters live in Europe, and we were scattered all over. So
now you travel a lot now still, right?
yeah.
And are you doing your photography still or is the hats taking more
That's
precedence?
so funny. My photography is my number one. It's my main business. It's still my bread and butter. I do it all the time. I think, I shoot destination weddings and I shoot events and I do fine art pieces and I do travel writing and all that kinds of stuff. But I think the hats, because it's so new and needs to be, I'm like raising a little baby right now. I have to put so much time and energy into it. I'm probably putting, even time into it as my photography, even though my photography is my livelihood. But I still do a ton. Like today I had to do photo shoots like most of the day for the hat company, so I'm still like working for both, at the same time.
And so you have to go visit Peru. Well, your partner's there. So you have
Yeah.
her there, but then you've got Guatemala and now you're expanding in these other areas. How often
Yeah.
do you have to travel around and check in on things?
I mean, I wish I could go even more, but I'm usually going down like 3 times a year down there and at least once a year to the other areas. We are, launching trips to go down there because I was like, we might as well make it a thing. If I've got to go down there for work, we might as well bring retreats down there and bring people and make it a thing because we just want to support the women, and the more we can bring even like tourism down or spread the word of what we're doing and see like the process of where your product comes from or your hat comes from. I just think it's really important. We call them origin trips, and then everybody on the trip gets a hat, and it's super fun. I mean, you basically get to play in the Sacred Valley, and there's always, because it's a Laura Grier trip, there's always going to be some sort of hike or adventure or crazy off the beaten path kind of thing. Like sometimes we might even stay in a homestay with an artisan, like for the night, and like have dinner with their family and things like that. So there's always going to be a level of adventure.
That's amazing. I've never been to Peru. I would love to go.
Oh my God, you need to come.
I would love to. So that's on the site as well, the Andy and a Hat site.
Yeah, we haven't announced which dates yet we're doing, but we're definitely going to go at least twice this year with bringing a group, and for sure in the fall. And then we're just right now is a tricky time to set the spring dates. So we might do Guatemala in the spring and then do like 2 fall trips to Peru.
And is that a good time of year to go as far as weather?
Yeah. But the Sacred Valley is kind of there's not really like seasons. It's more like hot, or not hot. It's more like dry and wet a little bit. They have just kind of 2 seasons there.
Okay. The photos are just so incredible. I mean, you're an incredible photographer, but they're just so beautiful and colorful and just it's so lush there, it seems like.
It is. I think it's one of the most beautiful mountains I've ever seen. And every time there's like a road that you drive out of Cusco and you just drop into the valley. And it's just every time you get to the point where the road drops in, you're just like, this view, it still gets me every time, even though I've done it so many times. It's just one of my favorite places to go. And I mean, the Quechua people believe that mountains are apus or gods. So they're the closest thing to the sky. They're powerful. They know all their names. They pray to them every day, like, make offerings. And I just think they are. And I can understand why they believe that. They're just so majestic and huge and beautiful.
It's amazing. We have some beautiful mountains here. When I was little, I grew up in Los Angeles. And when I was little, I used to think mountains were where giants were buried. And I guess I thought they were not buried underground, but above ground. And then the mountains were them being buried.
Oh, I love that idea though.
I don't know where I got that from, but yeah. Yeah. So
But we don't really, I mean, do we really know a lot about the names of our mountains around us? That was the thing that they were, they were teaching us how they make offerings at Pachamama, and they were like pouring out some of their drink to all the different mountains and aiming their body towards them and saying a prayer. And then they're like, your turn, you do it for your mountains. I was like, Apu Santa Monica
Mountains, right?
I was like, Apu Mount Whitney, I guess. I was like, I really just, I don't know our mountain names. And they were shocked. They were like, what? You don't know the names of the mountains around you? I'm like, okay, so we're not as connected as we should be. We'll work on that. So yeah, I don't know the names of the mountains around us. Like Mammoth Mountain, maybe like the ski mountains. Like, I don't know the names of the mountains.
Big Bear, is that a mountain?
Is that a mountain?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's terrible.
I don't know either. But no, I mean, for me, like, it's funny because when I started photography at like a young age, I was 13 when I was really interested in it. I always just saw it as a tool for adventure and travel. Like for me, I never knew I didn't know that I had the passion for it until I started really learning how to take photos in college and stuff like that. But I knew that I enjoyed doing it because it allowed me to kind of get into uncomfortable places or do fun things with my friends or go on this trip or I don't know, make people happy through the imagery or to be on an adventure. And so it was always sort of like a tool for that. And then I fell in love with the craft itself, but it's, and I still think it is, it's still a tool to do all these things that hat businesses and whatever else is going to come my way,
And now, of course, with social media, all those beautiful photos can be displayed. And on the tours with people, I'm sure they get great photos from the trip as well.
Yeah, they do. We have some great ones of our like recent women's trip. And yeah, honestly, like to me, I could go on and on about Sacred Valley. And I am going to be also leading other trips. Like I think we'll be doing and separately for my photography. Like I always do adventure trips. Like last year we did a women's group climb up Mount Kilimanjaro. This time last year, actually, we did safari in Kenya and then Kilimanjaro. So this year I want to do Madagascar probably in June. So that's going to be another upcoming trip I will be leading.
Wow. That's a big have you done that before?
No, I've never even been. So right now trying to plan a trip somewhere I've never been. Like I'm working with the same Africa tour operator that I did for Kilimanjaro because he was so fantastic that I totally trust him to put this together. But other than watching the Madagascar cartoon, I'm like, and I know about the baobabs and the lemurs, but I'm like, okay, wait, there's way more to it than that. But it keeps on coming up to me. Like I'll see a documentary about it, or I'll hear it, or I feel like the name Madagascar has been in my wheelhouse for the last year or so. And I'm like, that's it. I have to go there. Like I'm meant to go there.
Keep getting a reminder that it's meant to be. So I have this other intention band as well. This one is
that's the connection one. So that band, the image, the design are the branches of the tree of life. They believe like the roots go into the underworld, which also represents past, and the trunk of the tree is in the present or earth. And then the branches are in the future or heaven. And so the tree of life literally connects all the realms of spirituality. It connects past, present, future. It's all the same. So it's like life and death and yin yang and all that kind of stuff. So that's the connection band.
I really love that one too. I mean, it was hard to pick. That's why both. And the nice thing is that they are versatile. So
that's the beauty. You don't have to pick. You just take it off and then switch it out whenever you're feeling it. Yeah.
It is great to switch it out.
That one looks really good on you too. That color.
Yeah. And then, depending on what you're wearing, it can be color coded to match little granimals, if people know that. So you have this mission with these global artisans and really helping to enable them to help support themselves and their communities. And I think that's just so special. And in addition, there's this whole sustainability aspect of it and this consciousness to it. And that's just part of their culture, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's my favorite the whole reason why I'm connected to them is I think all of my travels around the world over the last 20 something years of being a photojournalist, I can't really subscribe to just one religious belief. I sort of believe in all of them. And if I believe in one, that means that five other ones are wrong, right? So I just feel like I believe in all of them. And I think that's sort of the culture that they have. They're not a religious culture. I mean, yeah, they believe in like, Jesus, and they have churches and stuff because of the Spaniards' influence and stuff. But in general, their spirituality is just be good to nature, be in communion with nature, appreciate it, honor it. Before you climb a mountain, you ask permission of the mountain. Before you till a field in farming, you ask the permission of the soil and you thank Mother Earth for like all of the fruit and the nourishment she provides. And, you bless the rain and like all the things. So they're just very in tune, and they know like the weather and the cycles and the stars and like all of that information they're very tapped into. And so I think I feel so much more connected when I'm down there. You're just more present and you're more connected. And they're just a very kind, spiritual people. But one of the things I really loved about when we started this hat company, my girlfriend Pats and I were like, well, how do we like make this we're going through all this trouble to bring these hats to the US, and it's not cheap. It's not easy, to place orders with indigenous groups that live in remote villages with no written language, like it's not easy. And so we're like, what's going to differentiate our hats? So we really wanted to bring their idea, like their culture and their spirituality and everything into the hat. So when the bands came to be, it was because we had spoken with the different communities, and not only did the bands have meanings, and it was also their woven language, which is we're helping to preserve their language by having them on the hats, but the placement, like a hat is really spiritual and powerful. Like it covers your third eye chakra, it covers your crown chakra. It's the last barrier, I guess, or connection even between you and source. And they believe like your hat's a very powerful symbol between you and source energy, and that what you put on your hat is what you're putting out there into the universe. And that's what the Quechua culture believes. And I just thought that was so beautiful. I'm like, wow, I'd love to bring that idea of intention and spirituality, not only into our brand, but just into like all of our Western busy, complicated lives back here at home, where we're just, rushing. And I'm like rushing and doing meetings while I'm going to yoga and like, talking on the phone and drinking my coffee and doing a million things and texting and just have that moment where, you, like you just said, like, oh, I can switch out my intentions and my hats. And it makes you think about it for a second before you put it on. And it is this like energetically powerful thing that you're putting on your head that was handcrafted in the Sacred Valley. And I don't know, we just wanted to bring a little bit of that connection and thought into people's lives here in the US and wherever.
I just love that. What a beautiful way to live, that they live with nature and Mama Earth. And that's definitely my belief as well. And so I like to take different aspects from different religions, because there's things that work with all of them, and to have that intention band. So do they do other things than just bands? I'm not necessarily for you, but do they make, I don't know, intention blankets or scarves? Do they do other things with these types?
I don't think they think of it as like we are setting our intention. That's just everything they do has intention, and how they decorate their hat is very powerful and has intention, and it says a lot about who they are. So we just coined it intention band because we're trying to make us Westerners understand that everything they do has intention, and so that's these aren't just like
that's just dots. Who they are and what they do, and we have to think about it a little bit more, but that's okay. We're getting there.
Yeah,
we're moving. I think I read, did you have something that you said like the Quechua language is an oral language and not a written language?
Yeah.
So this helps keep the weaving alive?
Yeah, it does. Exactly. So basically it's a woven and an oral language. And yes, can you now type it on Google Translate? You can, but that's because they just assigned phonetically, our alphabet to the words, but there was never, like back in the day, there was never a written language of their words. They're just now writing it out phonetically so people can have signs and people can, accept it as a language. But for centuries, it was always just spoken word and tapestries.
Amazing. What incredible history. I want to meet these people. I want to meet these beautiful people. I was doing a meditation today, which I thought was so perfect. And there's always a topic that it is, and they're short. I just do them quickly just to kind of check in, And so today's was tender heart. And so some of what was said during it was our lives are to explore, to share, to connect, to serve, to open our hearts to the world, connect with your values, your integrity, what matters to you, what is your motivation, and what is the intention of your tender heart. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be talking to Laura Grier. And that's just like exactly that's what this is.
Oh my God. Can you please send that to me? Because that is so crazy. I also have been part of doing like the Deepak Chopra abundance journey.
Yes.
Yes. Is that what you're doing?
Well, this is how I found it. I did that abundance journey, which I've done it a few times, and I wanted to lead a group doing it this year as well.
Oh, you should. It's so good. I mean, I love it. I'm still in the middle. I'm like smack in the middle. I'm like day 12 right now. But one of the journal prompts that they had today was like, what is your greatest intention in life? And what do you do towards it, and literally half of the words you just said were it. I was like, to explore, to teach, to learn, to inspire, to create beauty, to connect people. Like literally half of what you just said was like what I wrote as my life intention. And like they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, building community, going on trips, doing all these things. And it's hard to say, but it's weird when you have to be asked that question, because I feel like I never really sat down and had to formulate it on paper before. It's a great, practice to do.
It is. I really enjoyed it. I did it, I think, for sure 2 times. And then started to lead a group. Yeah. So I want to do it again. But funny you said that, because from doing that, I got the Chopra app, which I spoke about in a previous podcast. And it's the app, it's a daily practice and it's quick. I know I should probably be meditating longer, like 20 minutes at least, but I'd rather do something than nothing. And so these are anywhere from like 7 to 9 to 13 minutes. Yeah. And that was today's. It was like a little bit over 9 minutes. And I thought that's just so perfect. So I love it.
Oh my gosh, please send that to me, because I think I want to see how close that was to my journal entry. And I love that. And that makes me feel like I'm being authentic. If you thought of me with those words too, because I swear I wrote those words down today.
Absolutely. You're so passionate and you're so, driven can be thought of as a negative sometimes, but you're driven in just such like a effervescent way. Like you're just, you want to help and you want to, have community and keep the culture going and help these women, elevate them. And it's just wonderful. And somebody could go buy, a cheap little $10 hat, which who knows where it was made or who made it or what their situation was. And this one has just so much more meaning. And yes, it does cost a little bit more, but listen to the whole history of the story that we're talking about. It's amazing. So you've got this hat. And then the nice thing is you can change the band. So if you think, oh, well, it's not going to match what I'm wearing or whatever somebody might think, you can get the additional bands and then just switch them out. And it's like giving you a hat each time. And I've always been a hat girl. So I have pictures of me when I was like 2 years old, 4 years old. I always had a hat on. So I love hats. So
I love it. No, that one looks really good on you. And I love that you're rocking it out. And it is, it is special. It's funny because some people, I feel like we're in the good price range where we're not like too outrageously expensive for how handmade it is. Yes. But a lot of people, it is about education, because I'll be at a pop-up and people will come up and be like, oh my God, it's not like 40 or 50 bucks. It's like $200. And it's like, yeah, these weren't, made in China and mass produced. These are all hand shaped and handmade. I mean, if you go to Jackson Hole or to Aspen, like Kimosabe or something, you're paying, or any really real Western hat store where they're hand shaping them, like you're spending $1,000 on a Stetson or something like that. So like these hats should be $1,000. Like they're that handmade, but they're not. So I feel that we're in a really good range. I didn't want to be obnoxious about our pricing,
Yeah, no, they're beautiful, and they look, they have quality. And for those people who are into the whole Stetson, I'm sure Yellowstone has brought that whole genre forward, and I'm sure people will pay that for those. I mean, there's obsessed people with that show.
Well, anytime, and and I've been doing like these women's groups and doing photo shoots for people and like headshots. And I always do my goddess shoots for people where I bring, I let
you. What's a goddess shoot?
Oh, you haven't heard about my goddess shoot?
No, I have not.
I will be posting a bunch of those on my website very soon. And like my new site's about to launch this week. But basically it's become like a thing now where usually it's a dramatic outfit or numerous outfits. And we go out to some epic location and shoot these like extremely long trains or just very dramatic portraits. They're just ethereal. And I call them goddess shoots because a lot of them started out being, they were milestone birthdays. Like I'm turning 50 and I don't feel attractive or whatever. And we're like, oh no, we're bringing out your inner goddess. We're going to have like a full, makeup, wardrobe, like adventure shoot. We might have to like hike to where we're going or like whatever. And we always just do these epic shoots. Like we've done them in Death Valley or in the desert, out in foreign countries or Peru or Sri Lanka or wherever. And Burning Man, like whatever it is. And so I started doing these goddess shoots where it's basically like allowing women to kind of break free and feel like feminine and beautiful and whatever age they are. And so now I've had a lot of jealous men being like, well, are you going to offer any, like, I'm like, what, God shoots? I'm definitely not calling it that. Okay. First of all. But I was like, maybe, why not? You and your guys could like get a group together and start doing it. It really started because I was doing it on girls' trips. I'd go on a girls' trip. We'd all pick a theme and do an epic photo shoot to commemorate the girls' trip. And then it now has turned into like an actual thing. Like I'm being hired and flown around to do goddess shoots, which I'm super okay with. I think it's great.
That is incredible. And that's what I'm talking about. You're so vivacious and it's so exciting. And I just love it. I mean, that's fantastic. When you were talking about that, I was thinking my fiance in my phone is not under his name. When he calls, it comes up as Sexy Mofo. And he has me in his phone as Tiffany Page. And then I make that Tiffany Page. I'm like, why can I not be in there as like goddess? Right. So I thought, goddess. I guess that wouldn't really work as Sexy Mofo, but it's better than having the guys as God.
I know, right? I'd have to think about what I would coin the men's shoots as, but I'm like, until a group of men or a man wants to come and do a shoot like that, I got to think about that one. But for me, it's just so much easier and more fun to do it with women because I don't know. Like I haven't even really done a real goddess shoot for myself. I've done a few funky portraits. Like that was what we did our entire hike up Kilimanjaro last year. Was each woman. Wait, I think I showed you pictures of this, but basically we had 8 women and it was 8 days to climb Kilimanjaro. So I thought, oh my gosh, I wanted to do a portrait of each woman on every day. Like we would assign which day was a woman. And you could be whatever outfit you want to wear. You choose. You could be naked if you wanted, which one chick almost was. And and so basically our thing was that whatever day it was, like let's say my day was day 2. Whenever I felt inspired that day and whatever point of the journey we're hiking, I would say, this is where I want to do my shoot. And all the rest of us all had jobs. Somebody had to like time it. We gave ourselves 30 minutes because we couldn't like veer off our time to make it before dark and stuff. So we had 30 minutes. One person would be like wardrobe. One would help her like get dressed. One would help her do her hair stuff. One would do this. One would hold the light. One would do like the behind the scenes video. Like we all had roles that we had decided that day. And it didn't matter how upset or hurt or like whatever you were feeling in that moment, you had to support that woman that day when she decided this is when I'm inspired. And so it was really fun because it broke up the hiking because it's a lot
monotonous of the hike.
And you're like, haven't showered for days, you're not feeling great. And it made you have a moment where you felt really beautiful, where you were supported by like all these women, and you're getting these epic images. But it was like, we were just laughing and talking about it for like hours afterward. It made like the hiking fly by. But it was so funny because we had so much fun doing these shoots every day that, there are times that there would be like these groups of men that were like miserable in the rain, like hiking from like Europe, and they would turn the corner. We'd all be like half naked, like doing a full fashion shoot halfway up Kilimanjaro. And we were like, what the actual F is happening? And so it was funny because I can guarantee that no one has the pictures that we have hiking up Kilimanjaro ever will. And, we have obviously like the dirty hiking pictures that everyone else has, but we also have these insanely beautiful portraits, every level of the climb. I mean, the bottom is rainforest, and then you get into forest, you get into alpine and meadow, and then you get into volcanic, and then you get into arid desert, and then you get into the top, which is Arctic. And it's like, so it doesn't even look like you're on the same trip. Every single picture is so vastly different. And so it was really, really cool. And everyone had a completely different experience with it, like getting out of their comfort zone, being supported. I was feeling sick, or I felt like I couldn't go any further, and it like helped me go on. And it was really cool, like the camaraderie that it created. So I was like, I'm going to do goddess shoots from now on, like all my trips. Like, why not?
It's perfect. And you learn a new skill as well if they're doing
Yeah.
something that they hadn't done before. I don't know if I see guys doing that the same way as far as, being as free maybe with how they're posed. I don't know. I just don't
I
really
mean, they
picture the guys doing
could
it.
maybe it'd be a little bit more like, maybe it's more feminine. I mean, it could be more of a masculine, like album cover gladiator. Maybe I'll call them gladiator shoots. Like, I don't even know, something like that, where it's a little,
That could work. That was a popular movie, right?
yeah.
That's so funny. I love it. Well, I need to go on one of these trips. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go. Well, all of it is at Indiana Hats, ANDEANA hats.com.
Mhm.
And this is Laura Grier. So fun talking to you and so nice to see
Yeah.
your face. Haven't seen you in a while.
I
And
know. Likewise, you'll have to come to some of our fun gatherings. And if you guys starting this week, like right now, my website is up, but the new version of lauragrier.com, which is all of my photography, my goddess shoots and all those things, that will be up this week as well. So if you want to see some of the images from Kilimanjaro I was just talking about, they're in the photo stories section of that website.
oh, fantastic for sure. Well, I'll add that into the show notes for people as well. And socials, of course, Indiana Hats, you're out there all over Instagram, any other sites or
Yeah,
that you
my
plug?
main personal Instagram is Laura Grier Travel. And then my wedding photography one is Beautiful Day Wedding Photo. Yes.
Okay. That's a lot to keep up with.
Oh, girl, I know. And then I'm starting a nonprofit on top of it. And my to the point where my lawyer was like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, why? Like, why? So yes, I'm keeping myself busy, but yeah, I'm excited.
Very impressive. And how often do you see your partner in Peru?
We probably see each other like twice down there and twice up here, probably like 4 times a year, quarterly. We're trying to make it a little bit more than that, but it's just hard. And people, we each do the other's roles that we can't do. So it's actually more important for her to be down there, even though I wish I could clone her and have her up here helping me with all the pop-ups and things.
Right, of course. Well, so something that I do at the end of every chat is 3 tips that you can offer the listeners of things that they can do in their daily life or something to incorporate based on what it is that you do. And obviously, you do a lot. So, what you got?
Oh my gosh. Tips. Well, are you sustainable tips, I guess. Obviously, and I think I just learned this from my travels is, being like self-reliant. It's sort of like the Burning Man mantra too, where it's radical self-reliance. So like have your own things that you need, like your own utensils for water and like your own bags that carry things. And you're just, have all of the things you need, and not have to use all the plastic and the things all the time. I think that's a good one. I think one is honestly just research the companies where you're buying from. We have the ability to do that now. And I think, we all have, like, we can be conscious shoppers. We don't, there are companies out there that are really working hard to push the needle a little bit. And you have to push the needle on the ground in a lot of these remote places. And let me just tell you, it is not easy to start a business with artisans. But there are a lot of people that are doing what I'm doing. And it's really, I love when I find other people because I'm like, oh, you get it. Okay. You get it. Because it's a lot of work, but it is rewarding. And at the times where I feel really overwhelmed, when I go back down to Peru or Guatemala and I'm meeting with artisans, I'm like, oh, this is why I'm doing it. So I think just being aware that, when you buy a product that's handmade, you're really, really positively impacting a lot of people, especially women and their families, and way more so than a big company that's probably using really bad labor practices. And like, yeah, you might get it the next day on Amazon, but like, how are you negatively impacting the environment through that choice of just like needing it right now? So if you're allowing yourself to have a little bit less fast fashion, I think that's important. I think just try to cut out fast fashion. I'm guilty of all of my 20s buying Forever 21. I was obsessed with Forever 21 until I found out that half their clothes got burned or end up in landfills and choking our environment and, using child labor and stuff like that. And I just think that we all can be more conscious with where we get our products. So
that's a good
and
one.
yeah, I mean, it's true. And I know it's overwhelming, but like everyone has to push the needle a little bit, and it does make a difference. It really, really does. And what's another one? I love clothing swaps with my girlfriends. So instead of buying new clothes all the time, do a clothing swap with your girlfriends.
So fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. You just have a party and everyone brings stuff over and you swap it out and then you feel like you just went on a shopping spree and it's kind of awesome.
It is. I've loved doing those. I used to do those before COVID. And then of course, nobody really, wanted to do it during COVID. Even if you did it outside, they're like, oh, I don't want to touch that. Or, so they kind of died out, but I think we could make those come back now. Yeah. I do have a lot of clothes. I just get clothes. Yes, I purchased a lot of clothes and I do keep my clothes. I can wait for something to come back around in style and I still have them. So nothing does go to the landfill, but now I'm on my kick of, buying less. When I was young, it was kind of like you, like it was quantity over quality.
Yeah.
And now it's quality over quantity. And so I really appreciate, something that's handmade. And I think that's the big deal. And what some of these other companies might be doing. And there's that greenwashing involved. And so that's why I want to highlight, a company like yours, and you get to learn about the founder and why they're doing it and why it's important to them and about, the culture of the people that are making the hats. So there's a lot of ways you can do that. So.
And you can do it while having fun and looking good, like it's funny. You don't have to, go build like a brick building in some far flung place to give back. You can actually go on a really fun trip and buy a really beautiful product and you're doing good by doing that. So I think, we need to change the idea of like what quote unquote charity you're doing good is. It's not always like a sacrifice you have to make or something. So I think like all of my travel workshops for photography that I lead all give back in a certain way. I always build in either an activity or a fund that we, everyone's fee goes to or something where when by the act of traveling there, you are leaving that place better than it started. And I just think that was always like when I turned 40, I decided my 40s were going to be intentional. And so every trip I go on, every thing that I plan, every work project, every company, whatever it is, like there had to be some sort of good that it was doing, as well as being really fun. Don't get me wrong. It's all based around like fun and adventure and stuff too, but you can do all of it. You can do it all at the same time.
So great. Well, thank you, Laura Grier. You're like fun in a box. It's so fun. I want to go on one of these trips. So it's Andiana Hats. This is Laura Grier. And if you'd like to check out Andiana Hats, Laura is going to offer $25 off for the month from the time it airs. So probably around till the end of February. So I'll have that.
Yeah, till my birthday, February 26th. So everyone gets $25 off and the code is green T and the letter T. So just green T.
All right. And then February 26th, the Pisces birthday. So very exciting.
Yeah.
And I thank you for joining us. I thank you for choosing to care and much success to you on all your endeavors. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you. And you can find me on Instagram at Green with Tiffany. And if you'd like to reach out and let us know what you think of these beautiful hats, this will be posted and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please rate, review, subscribe, and share on Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world to me. You can find me at greenwithtiffany.com and on Instagram. Till next time.